Alrighty. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's installment of our new show that finally has a name, Washington Post Story Mode, or for short, WaPo Stomo, which is very fun to say. And I checked on like all of the various, I don't think that Stomo is any sort of widely known offensive term. So I think we're fine on that front. Anyway, this week, well, I always say that. I am your host, Washington Post reporter Nathan Grayson, and I'm joined this week by a number of lovely guests. I guess I'm going to just introduce them in the order I'm seeing them on my screen. So first of all, Zach, how do you say your last name?
Oh God, I'm already starting. Bussey. It's
Okay.
Zach Bussey.
Okay. And what do you do, Zach Bussey?
Oh, some have called me a Twitch watchdog. Others have called me a streaming expert. Others have called me completely talentless. So there's a vast variety of things that I have been called. But ultimately, what I do is I cover streamer stories and everything that's going on in the streaming space.
And then Tanya, how about yourself?
Hello, my name's Tanya DePass, also known as Cypheroftyr everywhere on the internet. I do a whole lot of things. I'm a diversity consultant, I stream TTRPGs, I'm making my own TTRPG, and I'm a part-time variety caster on Twitch who has also been partnered going on 4 years, and been on the internet far more than I should have been.
And then lastly, John, go ahead and take it away.
Hey, thanks so much. My name is John Hammond. I'm a cybersecurity researcher at a vendor in a cybersecurity spot called Huntress. I have my own YouTube channel where I showcase a lot of cybersecurity education, and also in the Twitch scene, trying to stream and showcase a lot of that thought process beginning to end. So super excited and happy to chat with y'all here.
Heck yeah. Well, yeah, good to have all of you. So yeah, obviously, I think probably everyone in chat already knows this because they can read the stream title. But we're going to be talking about this week's massive Twitch hack, leak, whatever you want to call it. Just to sum it up really fast. Basically, earlier this week, a person on 4chan, an anonymous individual, as pretty much everyone on that board is, posted a gigantic file full of what they basically described as all of Twitch, which is not entirely true, but it's a lot of Twitch, including everything from source code and kind of a Amazon competitor, or not a Steam competitor that Amazon is working on, to streamer salaries and a bunch of other sensitive information. So the ramifications of that are obviously quite far-reaching, both in terms of how people perceive Twitch and the streamers on it, and also in terms of cybersecurity and Twitch's own vulnerabilities. And so to start, I kind of wanted to just dig into kind of a broad view of it, because one of the things that I think stood out about the initial leak is that the person responsible basically said that they were doing it because they believe Twitch is toxic, and they wanted to kind of level the playing field amongst streaming platforms and, competitors and stuff like that. So, I mean, kind of for the whole group, do you think that a hack like this in any way accomplishes that stated intention? Or is it just at this point kind of a headache for streamers and also a big security risk broadly because source code and everything like that is out there?
Damn, that's a huge question.
Like to start big and then get specific.
So you were asking, hey, did it have the effect of that kind of Twitch revolution or drawing attention to the struggles and the difficulty? Is that what you were getting at there, Nathan?
Yeah, and then also just like, again, I think they wanted to draw attention, and they also wanted to like maybe do direct damage to Twitch, such that people say like, oh, I might go somewhere else. Maybe it's a good idea to finally pack my bags and try YouTube or whatever. Do you think that they in any way successfully accomplished that, or did they just kind of inconvenience a lot of people and potentially leave a lot of people vulnerable?
I think it's where it gets really interesting in terms of the leak overall. Obviously, there's going to be a whole bunch of different aspects to it that, we're not going to see the full ramifications of all of the things that happen from this for some time. We don't even know if this is the last of the leaks. So, it is labeled part 1. Is there going to be more? Is there going to be stuff that's going to be more damaging to streamers than it already is in terms of leaked salaries? And then in terms of the, you know, the desired goal of saying, well, we want to foster competition and, you know, that one, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that basically pulling Twitch's pants down necessarily is going to force them into action to all of a sudden completely radically change everything about the platform, be more open. You know, I just don't think that's going to happen. So I don't know if their desired goal, if that's their desired goal, is to foster more competition. I don't know if that's going to necessarily have that impact.
Absolutely, it's not going to have the impact they wanted because actually someone in Zach's chat yesterday said it really well about the logic of putting this information on 4chan. It's like going to a Klan rally and trying to have a racial sensitivity seminar. What is the point of doing that? Because everyone says, just leave Twitch. Okay, so if I go to YouTube, I gotta really hope my whole community will come with me. I can build that same monetization, break the partner contract I've got with Twitch, break any other agreements I've got because it's based on my Twitch numbers, and start all over from ground zero. So all you've done is expose something a lot of us knew anyway, which is, oh, these 100 white dudes make a lot of money on Twitch. Oh no, publicly available information or something you can sit down and math out yourself. So all it's done is brought me stress because I didn't even know that my numbers were out there until Nathan hit me up. So now I've got to sit here and go, well, what else is out there? What other info is on the data breach?
Okay, so what about from the perspective, like you are talking about, you know, data that's out there and concerns around that. And so, I mean, like, John, what is your kind of general sense on that front of what's made it out there? And like, to what extent are people vulnerable, even in ways where like, it's not immediately apparent that, for example, login information is out there? It sounds like Twitch is saying, no, it's not. But I mean, are there other vulnerabilities that something like this opens up that aren't quite as obvious?
So I've tried to download about half of the leak itself, just so I could kind of validate it and verify it on my own. Like, I know my own numbers are in there, so I'm kind of curious. Hey, what else really is kind of at stake there? I can agree and with Twitch statement, like, no, there aren't any credentials, there aren't any login passwords, or at least from what I had found. If someone has anything else, I'm happy to chat about it. But everyone has gone and said, change your Twitch password, change your, or ensure that you have two-factor authentication or two-step verification on Twitch along with Amazon. Really just good cybersecurity hygiene, what you should be doing kind of all along here. The other things that are a bit subtle is that there are conversations, and some folks had found, hey, we see SOC tools or SOC, the Security Operations Center, and kind of programs and software and scripts that a lot of Twitch staff might use internally to be able to look for potential vulnerabilities in their own products so they can better assess themselves and they can make sure that they are secure. Oftentimes that's very internal, that's some inside baseball. So having that leaked, that does kind of make us scratch our head because you get a little bit of an insight into Twitch's threat model, or what do they know about their own security posture? What do they know that they might be good at, what they might be weak at? So when folks start to send out phishing emails or start to lie and deceive other people on the internet that say, hey, your Twitch account is quote unquote deactivated or something's wrong, and they trick you with a scam like this, maybe we start to see some traction in that regard. I think that is a potential risk that could come from this. But as Zach said, it's too early to tell right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like on a number of levels, right? Because it does sound like the person who did this hack or did this leak, because I guess they just took advantage of a security vulnerability. That was sort of what Twitch was saying, or like a security, basically just an error, like something Twitch left something unattended, and I guess this person was able to extract data during that time period. But nonetheless, that person has said there's going to be a part two, which is certainly, I think, depending on who you are, fairly alarming. So I mean, like, right now, beyond what Twitch is kind of already doing, which is sort of, you know, being more communicative, I think, than they generally are, which is good for them. Like, what can they really do to help to ease things for like streamers, to make this something that at least is like a little bit less terrifying and a little bit less like we have no idea what's going to happen next.
That's an interesting question. You know, I don't think that we should give them all the credit on communications so far, because, you know, they sent out an email today saying, "Hey, just in an abundance of caution, we are changing your stream key," without really explaining why they're doing that. And so, you know, the idea that Twitch is being more communicative, uh, I take some issue with that. I question that a little bit. I think that they should probably be a little bit more forthcoming, especially in an email. There's a lot of people that aren't on Twitter. There's a lot of people that don't read Twitch's blog religiously. There's a lot of people that haven't logged into their Twitch account today to see the notification on their dashboard. So, but everybody has an email address associated with their account, I presume. So the fact that they haven't said anything in email does kind of bother me a little bit. Because I think that's just an easy way. At the top of that email, they could have just said, "Hey, here's why we're telling, or here's why we're changing this. Read our blog post. Keep on the lookout for more information there." As for
Actually,
protecting
Zach,
streamers, sorry, go ahead.
No, actually, I did get the same thing in email, but it was the same as an overabundance of caution. But there was no why we did this, but also everyone spent yesterday already doing this. So now I've spent most of my morning fixing my authentication again. But we did get an email, but who reads their Twitch emails?
I guess that falls on us then. But yeah, I think it would be nice to just have that little link, a little check the blog for more information on why we did this. Would have been a valuable thing. Moving forward, obviously, you know, I don't know all the extent of everything that's in that leak yet. The one that everybody's kind of focused on is the income, and apparently it's everything is out there. Every single person's income who's ever received a paycheck over the last 2 years from Twitch is in that. You know, there's the top 10,000 has kind of hit the, you know, everybody's talking about that because people made searchable databases of it, and then those were taken down. But that's, people in my chat were able to find my income from last month, and I'm like, yeah, that's accurate. That's accurate. That's a little bit off. And everybody was surprised that I made it as little as I did, which I that's their fault.
There you go.
So in terms of moving to the future here, in terms of what happens next, I think it really does come down to Twitch being very, very communicative and normally communicative versus what they traditionally have done to really stay on top of this, because this isn't like your air miles account, the balance of your air miles being out there. That's okay. What are people going to do with my 50 air miles? But this is literally, as Twitch says, a community of communities. And so it's a completely different playing field where I think it's so important that everybody has to be on top of things, kept informed, ready with the latest information as it comes out to keep themselves safe, because we, as we said before, we don't know what might be coming next.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, like, so John, from the standpoint of just like what a company like this can and should divulge in a situation like this, what are the sorts of things that somebody like you, with, you know, the knowledge that you have, would want to see them saying and talking about and communicating to streamers directly, as opposed to, as people are saying, like in chat, they're like, I think we're going to hear or see the phrase like an abundance of caution a million more times before this is over. Like, instead of that, what is the way to do this such that people actually understand what's going on and how to protect themselves?
Oh, okay. Maybe this is just my hot take. I don't know. This might just be my personal opinion, but I absolutely agree with Zach. And that, look, the number one priority right now needs to be communication and transparency. My hope is that, hey, this has happened, right? We can just kind of all acknowledge, like, the deed is done. We've got this blemish. We've got this little pimple that we're trying to work through right now. But if we can have as many representatives on staff on Twitch right now be able to get to whatever sense or semblance of customer support there really is, like the fact that you would be completely blind to this unless you saw the tweet on Twitter is such a painful thing. I wish folks that was communicated in the email. I wish that, hey, we have some other real-time stuff going on in some chat between a Twitch representative and anyone that might be able to ask a question. When it comes down to the technology portion of this, when it comes down to the real hardcore of the hack that might have taken place, I hope that there will be very, very soon some sort of aftermath, some sort of like whitewash understanding of this is how this went down. This is what vulnerability we have suffered from and now learned from and now recovered from. And we can really make this a learning point, not just for ourselves, Twitch, but for the whole wider community. This has certainly made headlines and made the news, and it's a huge talking point. Well, hey, we got to kind of move forward and let's make it better for everyone while we recover.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, Tanya, you, like you said earlier, found out directly from me, which is probably not an ideal way to find out.
Not in the least. I adore you, and I'm glad to hear from you. But I was like, oh, this is how my day is starting. Great.
Right. Normally, I like to be the bearer of bad news to a lot of people at once. Instead, I was the bearer of bad news to one person at once, which is probably not what you want.
Yeah, but it's ridiculous, and we talked about it. You put in the article. I've said this elsewhere that I know that my data is inaccurate because it's not a secret that Twitch funds the RPG show we do on my channel. So that income was nowhere to be seen, and it's not even really income because that money comes in and it goes right back out to the 5 other people involved with the show, or really 6 because we have a producer. The money that I've earned off other things, activations, the bits. And like when you told me about it, you thought, oh, well, people are saying it's ad revenue. I would love to make that much money just off ads. Like, give me that much money over 2 years just off ads. I will happily take it. You will hate my channel because it'll be all ads if I can generate that kind of revenue. But at the end of the day, the own that they think it is, oh, Twitch is so toxic, but you put it on 4chan. You put this in the worst place than Twitch. Because I mentioned that in Zach's chat yesterday because I was lurking and on occasion talking. Someone's like, well, what's so bad with 4chan? I was like, are you new to the internet? This is like the cesspool of cesspools. It is the acid reflux of the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it you think you're doing? And they want to be out here like, oh, look at us white hat hackers. Okay, you put out information. Anybody with too much time on their hands and willingness to go through, X person has so many emotes, subs cost this much, they've been streaming, they have X number of CCV. It's not a secret that these people made a lot of money. It's not a secret that the top 100 streamers are white dudes. So at the end of the day, what did you do except cause panic, make people have to spend time they probably didn't have to reset, refix, re-authenticate everything across the board? Because they thought that they were showing Twitch that it's so toxic. Full story, bro. You actually didn't do anything but cause problems.
Right. Well, there's also the thing of like, so in chat earlier, somebody was asking about the idea of like the looming threat of a second leak being like a red herring, being like, oh, maybe this is just, to cause even more panic. And I do find that line of thought interesting in a kind of conspiratorial way, if only because like a lot of the people who, for example, do hate raids are happy to impersonate people who don't like hate raids. There's this long running tactic of like, okay, we know how they talk. We know how like the people that we don't like talk. So let's imitate their language. Let's make it look like they're doing the thing that we're actually doing. And so like, I don't know, when I saw them include the sort of like a variation on the like Twitch do better hashtag and stuff on 4chan of all places, I was like, I don't know if I fully trust that this person is trying to do what they say they're trying to do. Like I'm slightly skeptical, albeit in a way where I don't have any evidence, so I can't just say like they're definitely this way or that way. But I still think it's worth keeping in mind that 4chan is especially a place where it's very easy to impersonate pretty much whoever you want to, and so why wouldn't someone?
That's
sorry.
Go ahead, John.
I didn't mean to stomp on you there. Can I ask, do you feel that this incident, this thing, changed your opinion or your viewpoint of Twitch? Because like I try and parallel this sort of thing. Like, hey, you go to a grocery store or you go to some community event at a theater or a movie theater, however you might want to parallel this to a real world physical thing, and like say that building, that company, they got broken into, their windows are smashed, there's supplies and stuff all over the floor, it's a mess. and maybe you don't go shop there for a little bit. Maybe they recover or they don't. Uh, I don't know. I don't know how to parallel this to a real world thing, but I would offer that with that question, especially to you, Zach and Cypher. Does this change your opinion of how Twitch handles your content, your revenue, your info, your streams? How do you feel, if I may ask? Sorry.
For me, it's like, this is gonna sound terrible. I don't know if I can have a lower opinion about Twitch security than I already do, because most of what I have to do to keep my Twitch safe is third-party tools. Most of what I have to do comes from other people and their ability to make bots, make whatever. We've seen Hackbolt, we've seen all these other people come up with bots in the community coming forth to do things, and it could be a matter of Twitch doesn't have the resources, they've got to take time because it's a big company and it's owned by Amazon, and there's all the hoops they got to jump through. And also, I haven't been talking about the source code thing because I am not a programmer. I can't speak on that. So right now, I have a very slim hope things will get better, if only because Twitch fixes it for a PR angle. Because remember, Twitch is a company. They do not like us, they do not love us, and the whole bleed purple thing has been something I've railed against since day one. So this is a contract. I've entered into a contract with the devil I know versus trying to make it on YouTube. So I don't have a lower opinion on Twitch. I just wish that this had not happened on top of the hate raids and everything else. I mean, in Nathan's previous job, we talked about the fact that I was stalked nonstop on this platform for 2 years and nothing was done. So I don't have a great opinion about security on this platform.
It is interesting that, fresh off of the ongoing issue of hate raids, and then they come out with some kind of tooling and some kind of option for us to be able to better control chats and offer some level of protection for people that they've been asking for, and then immediately we're hit with this, and I don't know if it's whatever deal Twitch made with Amazon, that deal with the devil is coming back, and they're having to cash that out. The karma balance is coming to fruition. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all the streamers in the community that end up being the most impacted. And again, I have friends who work at Twitch and like they care deeply about the platform, and I have people who I know at Twitch that are more corporate, and they maybe see the community as a mild nuisance. But at the end of the day, the people who are on the literal front lines of having to deal with hate raids, or their information leaked, or as you said, being stalked, are literally creators, and then people in chats who are having these conversations with creators and these communities. So it's in terms of my overall feeling on Twitch, I have this kind of, and people sometimes don't like this about me, but I like it about me, is that I have kind of this endless kind of optimism or hope that the future will be better, that they're going to improve, that they're finally going to listen, that they're finally going to see that one tweet about them and say, yeah, you know what, we should probably try that. We've tried all the other stuff that we didn't do before. Let's try doing what they're saying. And I kind of have that endless amount of hope that one day, because I care about the platform. I love Twitch. I think it's a great platform. It has a culture to it that is different than you can find on any other streaming platform, and I think that that's valuable, especially to creators. But if those creators can't feel safe, if they can't be protected, if they can't do their jobs and be entertaining without the constant fear of information leaks or hate raids or whatever it is, that's where I kind of go, they're already losing it. But that's, that, as you said, the bleed purple thing, that kind of trust with with Twitch, eventually that trust is gone and broken, and people won't look back, and you won't be able to exist off of the previous love of the platform. So, but I'm hopeful. I'm going to maintain that level of hope that, hey, one day they clue in and they go, yeah, let's try to do it this way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, one thing that somebody in chat just mentioned that I think, Tanya, you've already kind of replied to, but that is nonetheless at least a little bit compelling to me, is the idea that because at least some of this was tied up with Amazon, like there was some Amazon Web Services stuff that got out there too. Obviously, their Steam competitor thing, whatever form that ends up ultimately taking. Yeah. So let's see. Myers said, and they are going to be forced to improve security because this actually bleeds into the security of Amazon as well, since they're so intertwined. And it sounds like they're not that intertwined broadly because Twitch is pretty siloed. But at the same time, like there was still some stuff that came out that I think Amazon probably didn't want out there. So I mean, how much of a role do you think that plays in what happens next?
I like how we're all like, well, what do we say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I figure if anyone might know, John. If not, then we can just move on to the next thing.
You were asking of the
Basically,
other
the Amazon connection, yeah, and like how much some of their stuff getting out there might impact Twitch's, plan around dealing with this and making sure that they don't have any security holes in the future.
Okay, I think I could talk about that just a smidge, because I did see one thing in the chat, which is I think an interesting perspective, where they said, like, look, if this becomes such an embarrassing fault, will Amazon just drop Twitch? Will they just let it go? Okay, cool, you go do your own amorphous thing. Amazon wants to be hands off. I don't know. I don't know if that is a reality. I don't know if that's a potential. I think that it is an absolutely plausible outcome, though. I think maybe that could very well happen, and especially at least in the perspective of security. And if you're thinking about this from, look, you had this really embarrassing public mistake. There's a leak of just about practically everything. We're talking about some of our own internal stuff. We're talking about potential product releases. We're talking about revenue, etc. Whoops. So there's a very, very harsh mentality, I think, but it rings true, especially in situations like this, because you could parallel this to like the devastation of ransomware. You could parallel this to, not literally, but in the case of other cybersecurity incidents, it'll absolutely destroy and crush an organization and a company and a business. So if Amazon just wants to say, hey, I'm going to leave you at the curb right now, that rings true to a pretty poignant thing that I hear often is, like, you need to get this right. You need to get security right. Get it together or go out of business. And I know it's a slap in the face, but I wonder if that's something that could come from it. I don't know.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting. I was just thinking about this. This leak is obviously pretty significant, but there has been times in the past where people have been able to use their code and like back-end servers to be able to restore clips of Dr. Disrespect after he was banned. There, you can find deleted video. Like if you delete a VOD from Twitch, it was still and I think it might still be accessible using different tools to be able to pull it back from the grave. If you have your stream set to subscriber only mode, there are currently ways that you can take that VOD ID, drop it into a website, and start playing it. So it's and I don't know what that is about Twitch, that everything is kind of leaky. There's just, and maybe that's because it's old code and it's antiquated and hasn't been updated. It's based on Justin TV from a deck. I don't know, but at what point do they have to? And again, I'm not a coder, so I don't know how any of that stuff functions, and I don't try to fully. I mean, I try to understand in as basic a way as possible. But it's the kind of thing that when it happens, so when this happens and they say, oh, well, it was something that was unencoded. What did they say exactly? A server configuration change that was subsequently accessed by a malicious third party. An error in Twitch server configuration. Well, it's not a new thing for content that is paywalled, deleted, people literally removed from the platform to still be accessible. So how long has this been a thing? How long will it be a thing? And again, I don't know how that works, and I don't. And maybe John, I don't know if you can talk on that, and how do organizations manage to take 10-year-old code and modernize them over time with a site like Twitch with all the social features and integrations? I don't know if you have that level of expertise or not, but I'll leave that out there.
I thought I saw another inkling of that kind of similar going on in the chat. Someone is discussing, hey, have we talked about how to like recover from this? If your code is published completely online, how do they build this back and build back better or whatever? again, that's totally going to be a subjective and vague answers depending on who you ask. I think there is no real way to recover from that same semblance of software because now the spotlight's on it, and you'll have security researchers, you'll have threat actors, you'll have hackers, script kiddie, whatever you want to call it. They're going to be looking, and they're going to be trying to explore where are the other odds and ends, corners and crevices where I might be able to do something really weird with Twitch.
Mm.
I think we got to start over. We got to go from the ground up all over again. And I don't know if that's what will happen, but that seems like the right thing to do in my mind, because now you're naked.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like a mammoth amount of work, though.
It does.
But yeah, it is interesting to hear people kind of like react to this by saying, well, what if Amazon just dumps Twitch? Because I feel like that refrain comes up semi regularly when Twitch like kind of bottoms out or has like a really bad moment. I saw people talking about that in relation even to hate raids too. They're like, well, this is such a PR nightmare that maybe a company like Amazon, it's like, it's just not worth it anymore. But I mean, I think that when major companies purchase other companies for like not insignificant amounts of money, it's going to take a whole lot to make them back off from that. Like they would rather just keep going with it. So I'm not so sure that Amazon would ever part ways with Twitch, especially when Twitch is like so tied into kind of the way that they build out Amazon, some elements of Amazon Web Services and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, it's interesting to think about. It's just not how companies often operate. But on another note, earlier y'all were talking about the salaries, and I did want to get into that some because it seems to be kind of a little bit weird across the board in that, you know, Zach, you were saying, hey, yeah, y'all posted mine in chat and that's correct. You should give me more money. But then Tanya, you were like, this is not correct. And there are a lot of other people who are also disputing the numbers that they saw relative to like what was on their Twitch dashboard or, you know, relative to that time frame. So, I mean, what is going on there? Why is this so inconsistent?
I mean, I'm not the data person. I used to be a data person, but you know, there's so many different things that factor into our income. There's gifted subs versus paid recurring subs. There's bits. There's ad revenue because some people never run ads on their channel. Some of us have to run ads on our channel. And I know, at least in my case, again, Into the Motherlands is funded by Twitch. After we're sitting here doing this, hopefully they give us more money. They might not. I don't know. I might be out here with the Indiegogo saying play for more Motherlands streams. But I sat down and I actually tried to go back and just pull one Excel sheet for the whole time period, and I couldn't. I had to go month by month. This doesn't add up because there's things that are missing, or, you know, our bits and ad revenue sometimes doesn't fall in the same month that it occurs in. And I sat down and I was like, even adding in Motherlands, that still doesn't add up for me. But even if it did, who is going to begrudge a creator the money they've earned that I didn't force anyone to subscribe to me? And this is going to sound callous, but no one is obligated to come to the stream. No one's obligated to subscribe or give bits or do anything else. And at least for Black creators that may be on that list, let's not ignore the huge spike in June 2020 when everyone realized we exist and was like, I feel bad about George Floyd. Here, have a bunch of gift subs. And then they never came back. So July's payout was fantastic. July 1st, my sub revenue and my subs dropped like 70%. I will probably never get to that point again. And I've tried. It's not like my content has been any different between June 2020 and whatever. Today's October 7th. Same person, same content. But that month of pity subs, let's just call it what it is. And the, oh my God, I don't know what else to do for you. And here, have some gift subs because I don't know what to actually do for Black people, has now skewed that for a lot of creators. Taking out Motherlands, taking out that June spike of 2020, I may have made over the last 3 years $25,000, which is why that is so inaccurate. And even if it was accurate, if I had made all that money or had made more and it wasn't on there, why is the position that creators don't deserve money? You all watch us. We have to do the hard work of streaming, and this isn't throw us a pity party. But being a streamer is not as easy as sitting down getting in front of a camera, screaming and yelling, it's Call of Duty, and raking in money, or you become a partner and you suddenly are rich, which some people seem to still think. Even if I had, honestly, well, I mean, I earned money, but if that number was accurate, why is there anger over streamers making money for putting on a show? There's my question.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very strange point of view. Also, I will add very quickly, yeah, I legitimately don't know how any of you, even the ones who are part-time, do it. It's like I do this like 2 hours a week, and I'm like, okay, that's enough. I need to go sleep for like 16 hours now to make up for it. But yeah, no, I think it is interesting. And actually, I was going to ask this anyway. But like, I think my kind of broader perspective on it, part of the reason why people are as upset as they are seeing these exact figures is that, like, I think before, when there's this perception, especially with big streamers, that it's like, well, yeah, a lot of people know that they are in theory millionaires, that they are in theory pretty wealthy. That was still enough distance between the reality of the situation and like kind of the imagined version of it, where people could still trick themselves into saying, well, big streamers are still normal. They're just like me. That's a regular person over there with no real differentiation between myself and them. And when you see an exact figure, when like the literal number is on the page, then you can't really do those mental gymnastics anymore. Then you're like, okay, this person is, at least from a class perspective, removed from me, or any number of other people. And so I think maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's part of why people, they're not necessarily mad that streamers make money. They're mad that like big streamers are not actually their best friends. And it's always this like slow unraveling of that parasocial relationship. That's so many like Twitch and streaming controversies, right? Is when that illusion gets broken a little bit more. And this is just like the latest step in that progression. But I mean, I don't know, maybe y'all have different thoughts on kind of how that works.
Yeah. So as it relates to the just to kind of rewind a little bit in terms of the actual data itself, because when we were trying to when people, and again, I want to make it clear that while the 10,000 top streamers incomes was posted into a searchable database, it's everybody's. Like, it's everybody's. If you made $100 payout at a certain point over the last 2 years, you're in the list. Like, you can be found. You're just not going to be in one of these searchable websites that some people have launched. So that's important to know, because I think a lot of people thought that it was just the 10,000. In terms of, for me, because I wasn't not in that top 10,000. When we were looking at the numbers versus my actual income, the number of bits and ads was directly accurate. Like, it was to this penny accurate. But it was the subs that were a little bit off, and that I suspect has something to do with how gifted how not gifted subs, how prime subs and how multi-month gifted subs are counted, and when they're actually counted in those totals. And so that's why I think that there was some, and I don't think that bounties were included in that, but and there's a few other data points as well. Obviously, if you were paid directly, if you had a special contract with Twitch, that would be a different thing. So that's where kind of some of the discrepancies that we saw while we were doing it live on stream. But then as for creators and you know, when your income is out there, I don't think that, like, if you're, again, the top 100 streamers, I don't think that anybody is surprised, and I don't think anybody should be surprised that those guys raked in a ton of money. And some of them, like Ludwig and Trainwrecks and you know, some of these other people, they talk about how much money they make. They talk about having millions of dollars. So for a lot of their audience, that's just par for the course. But I think the ones that are really going to, and again, we haven't necessarily seen this play out yet because perhaps the data isn't fully out there, but you know, as the list of 10,000 is expanded to all of them, perhaps people are going to find, hey, why does the person who I watch with 30 viewers, how come they're making $10,000 a year? How come this person? I think it's going to be the smaller creators that actually, who have more tight-knit communities that perhaps their audience doesn't realize just how much money they're making. That's where you're going to have the kind of the sticking points with communities, where people are going to start speaking up or feeling uncomfortable or making somebody feel weird. I know that a couple people who were on the 10,000 list but lower on it, people came into their chat and let them know, hey, we know how much you made, and then dropped into their chat, and they were like subs for a long period of time, and there was like, again, I have not personally experienced a hate raid, but like having somebody come in and tell you something about yourself or making commentary about you that you did not you're not okay with has got to be a really weird feeling, a really uncomfortable feeling to have your income just dropped into your chat over the last couple of years. So, as a streamer, that's where I think that the real discomfort is going to come in the, and again, that's pending as long as there's no other leaks that occur. But yeah, that's going to be a really weird conversation or a weird thing to address within your community. And I think you just have to take a hardline approach to your community and say, hey, if you're not comfortable talking about that, do not bring it up in my chat. I don't care if you're a 6-month, I don't care if you're 12-month, I don't care if you're 24-month sub, I don't care if you're a mod in my chat. Do not bring that up. I have no interest in seeing my income talked about in this chat.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that everybody kind of has a different feeling about it at this point. Because yeah, like some streamers, a thing that I saw with because one of the main people who trended off of all of this yesterday was Hassan, right? A
Yep.
lot of people were very upset to learn that he made, almost $3 million over the course of a couple of years, which what a shock, right? He's one of the biggest creators on the platform. He recently bought a house. Like, I don't really understand why people are that surprised by this. And even he didn't really understand initially because he was like, my subs are up in the corner of my stream every day. You can do the math pretty easy. But I mean, again, I think it's just like there's a difference between there being that many like barriers to entry or that many hoops to jump through and then just the number being there. But in any case, like, yeah, I think that it's sort of an odd thing to have happen because on one hand, nobody wanted this to occur. But on the other hand, for example, people can now more educatedly talk about like subscription splits and things like that, stuff that they were not able to divulge previously because of like contract stipulations. Now you can just point to a number, do some quick math, and be like, this streamer has a higher sub split than this other one. And like I have to wonder if I would assume there's a benefit to that because when you have like a ton of obscuring of like income, the only person that helps or the only entity that helps is a company, is whoever's giving that money out. Whereas if everybody knows what everyone else is making, then they can do a better job of negotiating. They can use more data to say like, hey, I deserve more money. I mean, anything just down to like, for example, a streamer could semi-meticulously go through all of this, find everybody who has a different sub split than like the regular 50-50, and be like, this proportion of streamers in my echelon has this sub split, so I also should have that split. Just things like that are now possible simply because this list is out there. So I mean, is there like, despite the inconvenience of all of this for streamers, and it's a big one, is there also some good to this?
I don't know because, okay, if you find out someone has a different sub split, at the end of the day, what does that mean for you? Are you then going to try to go to Twitch and go, hey, I saw in the leak that these 5 people, when we have a comparable size audience and CCV, are getting whatever the higher sub split is. Why can't I have that? And, there'll be people who stream like twice a month feeling like they should make thousands of dollars. Because, if someone asks me, I will tell you I'm not going to do this on this podcast right now because it'll be out here for perpetuity. But if someone were to come to me and ask, or when my community was like, hey, I saw that number, can we talk about it? I may talk to them, I may not. And I've talked about it. Right now, I could go in my dashboard. I can tell you I've got exactly 642 subscribers, 10 of which are tier 3, 2 of which are, I'm sorry, the other way, 2 of which are tier 3, 10 of which are tier 2. So you can go do some math and figure out how much I should make next month. I'll tell you how much my payout is every month. If someone desperately needs to know, but at the end of the day, what does that do? Because you have to know who to ask at Twitch. You have to have the justification of why should I get a higher sub split than someone else? And again, this isn't standing for Twitch. Trust me, I am not standing for Twitch. But if you're going to ask for the higher sub split, what's the justification? Or like the people that lead with F you, pay me, and always want to get paid more and more and more and more, but then don't want to do the work that leads with F you, pay me. Because if I go to a sponsor, or if I go to a company and say, I want to play your game, or if they say, hey, play our game at launch, we'll give you $2,000, and I go, lol, no, give me $5,000, then that list of deliverables is going to double or triple. So we also need to realize that for everybody that thinks that they should just by default get this higher sub split, but then you look at their metrics and, you know, at some point, and I'm being mercenary and businesslike right now, you stream once a month, why should I give you 70-30 split or 80-20 split?
I'll take a somewhat counterpoint, but also I agree with you fully on that. I think that there is a level of work that is certainly required to deserving promotion. Yeah, I won't make you hate me, I promise. I think just generally overall, and this is something that I've contested for or said for a while, is that, you know, I think that partners by default should probably get 70-30. I mean, if we're going to make anything positive about this leak, it's the fact that I forget the exact number, but the 10,000 people on that list, 25% are on that list. Only 25% make up a livable wage or a minimum wage, and everybody else under that isn't making that much. So the majority of people on Twitch, it's only, you know, 3,000, 4,000 people that are actually making a livable income on Twitch out of the millions and millions of streamers. So if that's the case, and obviously now it is, now there's actual data to support it, perhaps the people who are partnered with the platform, the people who have worked hard to build an audience and grow an audience, perhaps they should deserve a little bit of a benefit of 70-30 right off the top. You know, it's the industry and all these other platforms are sort of moving towards that, or, you know, YouTube is already, despite some hurdles to get into it, is 70-30. I think the only one that is also 50-50 is Trovo. But it's the kind of thing that I think just because you have a 70-30 split doesn't mean that you're immediately going to be a millionaire or make $10,000s or hundreds of thousands of dollars. You still got to put in the work. But there's obviously, if you have 60,000 partners with Twitch and 30,000 of them streamed at least 4 or 5 times over the last quarter, you know, they're not going to be making a full-time income. But if you are streaming consistently, you're putting in good content, you have 1,000 subs or whatever, I think at that point, you know, it should be something that, hey, you're able to live off of this, and people enjoy your content, and that allows you to create more content, because now you don't have to worry about having a part-time job or a full-time job. You can actually focus on creating better content. So that's again, it's difficult to see much benefit to this leak overall, but if that's the one thing that we can take from it, it's that it's not the money printing press that some people have claimed streaming is. Oh, Tommy Innit comes to Twitch, or Rambo comes to Twitch, and he's already got $2.5 million. Well, that's an extreme exception to what is otherwise a platform where you're not going to make a full-time income.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's kind of the juxtaposition of this whole moment, right? Is that people are mainly talking about those salaries at the top end because they're these very big, obviously noticeable numbers. But like the real takeaway is kind of the thing that you just said, Zach, which is that a lot of streamers who are even in the like top 0.1% of the platform, because keep in mind, there are millions and millions of people who stream on Twitch. And so even people within that top 0.1%, which is a vanishingly small number, don't make minimum wage. And so, yeah, it's just like, I hope that ultimately that's one of the main takeaways. I feel like a lot of this is being obscured by, again, what like the top 100 streamers are making. And of course they're making bank. And I worry that people could extrapolate that out into saying streamers are making bank, which is just categorically untrue. And so, I mean, again, I feel like this is one of those things where we can't really see the long-term ramifications yet, but I hope that people learn the right lesson from this. And I think there's at least some promising signs in that direction, in that, like, I think the discussion around hate raids initially already sort of brought the 50-50 split and the desire for a 70-30 split to the forefront. And this is a pretty easy bridge into another element of that conversation, which is, well, look at what happens when you have a 50-50 split. Even a lot of people who are doing a lot of good work are still not making enough money to make this, you know, sustainable for them as a full-time job. So that remains to be seen. Speaking of that top 100, though, Tanya, you've touched on this a little bit, but it still, I think, bears mentioning, which is that, like, if you look at the demographics in that top 100, it's mostly the same dude, right? It's variations on the same guy. It's like somebody went into a character creator and just kind of like made slight tweaks to the same guy over and over, and kind of got, a series of mildly different guys.
It's basically a bunch of those NFTs, CryptoPunks NFTs.
No, not the
different
NFTs.
But no, yeah, like I think what the split is that they're like in the top 100, 2 women, maybe 3. It's like Pokimane, Amaranth, and somebody like they're women involved in Critical Role, obviously, which is at least something. And then like
yes, but so before you get too far, let's talk about the whole Critical Role thing. Because it's a company. It's not like one individual person's making that money every month on Twitch.
Excuse me.
Are you all right? Do you need water?
Oh no, I'm getting over a cold, so I'm just gonna cough sporadically. It's really cool. Anyway, keep going.
Zach.
Sorry.
So it's not, and even if one person was making that kind of money, because there were some people making multiple millions by themselves, it's a business. That money is going back into the business. No one person on CR is walking out with millions of dollars in their pocket. It's a business account. We have the Rivals of Waterdeep account. All the subs that we get, those that we get, go back into putting on the show. No one person on Rivals of Waterdeep, for instance, is walking away with all the sub revenue. It sits in our PayPal account. We don't sit there and go, well, who did the most on the stream? Or we just don't divvy up the money 6 ways now. And that part irked me because, and this is a mild rant, but, it's like people zoned in on that instead of the real issue of Twitch was hacked, people's info is out there, instead of using it as yet another way to go, I hate Critical Role in D&D. Let me get some clicks off making this my personality once more. That's all people are doing. It's like, if they said, okay, y'all are mad that we make money, we're not doing campaign 3, deuces, enjoy those 5 years of content, we're going to go do something else. Imagine how people would act if that was a result of everyone mad that they make money. And also throwing in the Kickstarter money. Having just done a Kickstarter, you know where that money is? In my bank account. It's not my money.
Yeah. So, to be clear on that, yeah, you work, you also do tabletop role playing, and so you have an association with Critical Role. You know those folks.
Well, I know them. I've never been on the show. Like, I'm friends with many of them, but you know, my example is Rivals of Waterdeep. We are an official D&D show, but we are on our own channel. We got affiliate earlier this year. God, it's only October. We're not yet partnered. But if our revenue was on there and people wanted to be mad, it's like, okay, you can be mad, but you also want the show every week. Which is it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I think it just goes back to these differing perceptions of it's the way that people thought their favorite creators were versus the reality of the situation. And I think that, like, with Critical Role, one of the things that I saw people talking about is, this isn't just a group of friends. It is a media organization. And like, we should view it as such. That doesn't mean you should be like, this is the worst thing ever now and I hate them. It's just like, well, no, you should view it through the lens of actual reality, which you now have a kind of glimpse into. Similarly, like the whole thing with Hassan that he talked about at length on his stream yesterday is like, yeah, people are mad that he makes a lot of money. He's been relatively transparent about it. And he's also like, but I still advocate for, like, I spend every day on here advocating for taxing the wealthy and like creating better healthcare and like all this other stuff. Like, that has not changed. And like, there are different roles that people can play in media ecosystems in terms of like achieving good ends. And that's one of them. I mean, people should be able to make money and live relatively comfortable lives. I think that the ultimate goal should be for everyone to be able to do that, not to take away from the few people who are able to do it necessarily, at least when they're only making like a few $1 million. That's very different from someone who's like a billionaire and who's extracting resources from the Earth's core in order to go to space so that they can just leave us all to die.
I mean,
oh boy.
Well, and it's this idea, and I'm laughing as Pleasantly Twisted is in the chat, and we've all spoken, where it's this idea that people want you to succeed until you succeed too far. You succeed too much. Or when we say, pay creators what they're worth. And then when the creator goes, I'm worth X, they go, oh, that's too much money. But yet everyone's so mad about this Twitch list. When how many people were in Hassan's chat? I think 50,000 at some point.
Yep.
Because I was listening. I didn't interact because it was just too much.
Oh, it's a madhouse. Yeah.
But it's like he turned off his donation button. He's apparently been transparent because I don't know of him other than we were both on the Kotaku list last year.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there are people on Reddit talking about how he's raking in money.
Mm-hmm.
So this is also why I hate Reddit and 4chan. It's where the truth goes to die. But it's like if I turn off my sub button tomorrow, and I know it was brought up in chat about the sub off Twitch thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's easy to say move your sub somewhere else so I get more money. But people have dropped their Twitch subs, but are they moving to Coffee? Are they moving to Patreon? Are they moving to a monthly PayPal tip? So it's easy to go, well, I don't want to support Twitch, but then where's the follow-up? Mm-hmm. So I think if this leak had happened even a year from now, we'd be seeing a whole different set of numbers for everyone who suffered through the sub off Twitch, the hate raids, and it'd be all the marginalized creators. We might not even make this list for all it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also like, I think there's an interesting thing to this that you mentioned, Tanya, which is like people like seeing you succeed until you succeed too much. And like, I think that is kind of Twitch in a nutshell, because so much of like the progression of a lot of streamers is like early on their audience is, all about like every new thing that happens. Like they make partner, that's the biggest deal ever. And then like they start getting opportunities from various brands and companies and sponsorships. And every time that happens, it's like, yeah, they did it, they made it. And audiences in those cases feel like they're along for the ride, like they're part of it, like they were there for all the big moments, and they like helped make them happen simply by virtue of, at the very least, upping the number of viewers, if not being in chat, participating in all this stuff. And then, yeah, again, those same people, when faced with what that ultimately means, which is that someone becomes rich and famous and successful, are like, no, not like that. You should have stopped sooner or something. And it's bizarre, but I mean, I think it makes sense in the grander like sort of way that Twitch functions and like culturally what people like to see out of their favorite streamers, which is this like vicarious success, because it's really enjoyable to watch someone you like succeed, both on the basis that you like them and you want them to succeed, and on the basis that you yourself may not ever experience that kind of success, but you still get to feel like you're part of it. You still get to feel like you're part of something that is big and wealthy and famous, which is like, whoa, that's wild. It's a weird feeling of vicarious agency in a time and era that constantly deprives us of it. Is it like the right way to, or not right, but like, is it accurate to life? No, definitely not. But I think it's a way that a lot of people feel nonetheless.
It is, but I know I've talked a lot, and I'm curious, especially about Zach, because when I was in your stream, you were talking about how you were flooded with DMs and messages, and this the we can get into the parasocial part of it as well, because that's where all this comes from. And John, I'm not sure how people respond to you or like come to you for expertise, because I just met you today. But this idea that when you succeed, we all succeed, until you got that one little hater that's in the corner, and they're mad. It's like, well, why do you get to do this, and how did you get to do that, and other stuff like that. And it's like, but I worked for it. I didn't just wake up today and people handed me success. But I know I've talked a lot, which is odd because I'm the only Black person on this panel. This isn't normal. But for once, I'm going to say I want to hear from the other two white folks on the panel, and then I will talk about parasocial relationships if we have time.
So for me, I'll kind of step in here in terms of the parasocial aspect of Twitch and income and stuff like that. I think what a lot of streamers, and I talk to a lot of streamers, and as I said, waking up to yesterday's DMs and Discord messages was like, okay, what did I miss? Did Emmett get arrested? Like, what happened? What is the big bombshell here? And it's like, oh, this is actually bigger than I thought. Not that Emmett Sheard getting arrested wouldn't be a big deal, but that's at least one thing to wrap my mind around. In terms of success and streaming, and again, what I hear from a lot of creators is that because most people start streaming not to make it a business, despite the fact that, as you know, especially with Critical Role, it's a business. And for top streamers, becomes a business. They have employees. I mean, you know this, Tanya. You have employees, you have expenses. The money that comes in often goes out just as quickly. A lot of people who start streaming on Twitch don't have that kind of business mentality when they're actually getting into streaming. And so when they start seeing that success and they start seeing people coming around and the money starts trickling in and they're doing better and financially they're secure and they can move out of their parents' a home, or they can move out of their crappy apartment and buy a home, or whatever it is. They often haven't, again, this is just from what people have told me, they often haven't thought of themselves as a business. And so anytime, and anytime they have kind of controversy with their community, it's often very personal. It's often a very drama-esque and traumatic to deal with, because it's all these people that have had a direct impact. They feel like they're part of a community. The parasocial aspect of it is so ingrained in how they achieve that success, and they've never really had those conversations with their community about, hey, like, I'm being an entertainer, this is a business for me, and you know, despite the fact that I love doing it and it's me and I'm personal, and but at the end of the day, as much as you guys are great and fantastic, we're not all like best friends. Like, you know, if I get married, I might stream it, but I don't want you guys actually coming. So it's a thing that I don't think a lot of people talk about, because it's an uncomfortable discussion to have. How do you say that to, you know, if you're a streamer with 100 viewers and you've never really talked about the money aspect, and now your money's out there, you know, how do you kind of have that conversation if you haven't had it before, or how do you know, approach that? And that's where you get into kind of these weird kind of, again, the parasocial relationships get into these weird territories of people overstepping and stalking and making people uncomfortable and believing something that's not actually real. And you know, I don't think there's a lot of conversation around that, because we all talk, you know, the financial aspect is the benefit, but you don't, there's not always a lot of discussion around the negative sides.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, John, I know that like you're mainly on YouTube, but like you do some Twitch streaming and stuff too. Have you experienced any of this stuff? Especially because like you have a pretty big audience, so I would figure that there's some parasocial nonsense tied up in your existence as well.
Yeah, thanks. No, I appreciate that. My YouTube scene is kind of what I gotten started with, and then started to do Twitch as a little offshoot to do more raw, like fully no prep, not a packaged video, but the genuine appreciation of a live stream. So I think YouTube sits around almost 300,000 as an audience member, but Twitch is much, much smaller. When we talk about the parasocial relationships, though, I what I struggle with is trying to be a creator and trying to be someone that puts this show on. And it is literally just that, as we've talked about it. It's a certain amount of art and performance, and that makes it a little bit of artifice. That makes it a little bit of it is something that you do as a performer, so it might not always end up being your genuine core self, because you have to make a living. And if you get monetized, you get that interest, and now, like, cool, this could be a job, this could be something that I could help build in my income with that. So there's I think a lot of conversations and creator growth when people are talking about, like, okay, what could I do to make more money? What can I do to grow the audience, grow the channel, grow the following, all in line to get more income? It's weird when we say it's not a selfish cash grab or money grab, but in some cases it may be or may not be. Uh, when people say, "Oh, I want to put out more content," well, it might not be strictly the quality of the content, but it's the consistency of the content. So you can keep having the audience, keep having the people, and maybe have money roll in. Uh, what I struggle with the most is when you get to a certain size, when we have this parasocial relationships, is because, let's say you had an audience of 100 people, let's say you had an audience of 100,000 people. Try and imagine all of those people talking to you at the exact same time throughout all hours of the day, because you've been a nice, caring creator and you said, hey, let's engage with everyone. Let's respond to every comment. Let's answer every Discord DM. What if that levels up to 100,000 people all the time? You physically cannot respond to each of them. And then it's like, I can't be friends with all of you. It is impossible for me to do. And I think that's where the parasocial relationship certainly starts, and it becomes really, really aware for the creator. I have no idea if any of that was even close to what you wanted to hear.
No, I actually want to jump off of that for just 1 second here, because as you're saying that, and the original question was stemmed around all of my DMs from Tanya, the DMs that I received. You're right. there is a kind of a thing like for me, because again I talked about a lot of people, but for me, I've been pretty good about having discussions with my community is mostly streamers anyways and other content creators, so the benefits of being able to talk openly about parasocial relationships and money is not necessarily as uncomfortable to have with them as it is perhaps for somebody who have just a direct audience of non-streamers. But yeah, like getting a lot of DMs and then feeling that kind of level of guilt of hey, I have to respond to all these people, I have to respond to all these people because I've done it in the past. Anytime that somebody sends a message, I'll respond to it. That's something that I haven't fully adjusted to yet, and it's something that I'm not fully sure how to do it. In terms of just literal replies to me on Twitter, a lot of the times I just have to like something. I just have to put a little like beside it, going, "I acknowledge that I've seen this, I've read it," but I can't respond to everybody because I'm already stretched for time. So, but yeah, I don't know if that in the future will be that kind of stepping stone in terms of if this becomes a bigger financial career for me in terms of a bigger career and more success financially, whether or not that will make me seem standoffish or that'll people like, well, you've changed, you used to respond and now you don't, and so I haven't really had much time to think about that, but now I am. So we'll see what happens. Let me get back to you in a year and a half.
Well, the hard part is, and and I've talked about this a lot in the link. Thanks for grabbing the chat, grabbing the video where a bunch of us got on and talked about parasocial relationships. And the hard part is that, and I don't know the threshold on Twitter or even Twitch or whatever. At a certain point, people stop seeing you as a person. Mm-hmm. You are a persona. You're a content mill, and they talk sideways to you and act like they're surprised if you see it and you talk back. It's like, but you tagged me. Or they get on Twitter, they get on Twitch and go, well, Cypher so-and-so, whatever. And I just know how she feels about me when I'm sitting here like, I don't know who you are. And that's not an arrogance thing. It's like, I literally have never seen your username, but you've made this fictional version of me that apparently hates you when I don't know who you are. You could be a lovely person for all I know. Or it's like you said, people come in on the ground floor, and when you make it, they feel like, well, I was there from the beginning. Why don't you answer my DMs? Why don't you follow me on Twitter? Or you used to follow me and now you close off all your replies. And it's like, because at a certain point, my mental health is going to come before all of you. I've even, and a lot of my friends are in the chat, and they mod for me on Twitch and other places. And I've even had to say, if I don't know you personally, please don't come in and use my name. Mm-hmm. That is a boundary I've set. Or, like when we do Black Dice Society, which is a D&D show, and we luckily have a nice sized audience, but people just yell at you or yell your name out or use your name. And it's like, I don't know who you are. Or if you try to talk about having a bad day and you'll get people, oh, you can talk to me. And I'm like, I don't know your actual name. I don't know where you are in the world. Why am I going to unburden myself to you, internet stranger? And it's this weird idea of you are with me in my office right now, but you are not actually visiting me at my apartment. I let you in to a degree. And people just need to realize this is transactional. A lot of times it is not, I'm a bad person. I'm the same person on and off Twitch. Friends in the chat can vouch for that. I'm the same grumpy jackass I am online as I am in person. There's no version of Cypher you get for stream that you won't get in person. But we're not best friends. We're not buddies. The viewer, subscriber relationship is transactional, and I need people to understand this, because just because you gave me $5 a month does not mean that you get to dictate my content. It was $25, $200 a month. But people think that their physical support buys them closeness to the creator, and it actually doesn't. And that's the thing we need to talk about, in addition to not having the stigma about I made X, I've only got 100 subs, that meant I got $500 or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So,
well, yeah, I mean, it's also the mechanics of the entire transaction, right? Is like the incentive to give people money on Twitch. And like I see a lot of people, when a lot of this income stuff came out yesterday, a common refrain I saw among people that I think probably don't really watch Twitch much is like, why are people even giving money to these creators in the first place when they're already like big names and have big audiences? And it's like, well, they're doing it for a brief moment of possible interaction, of being acknowledged, of having somebody say their name, of like, and maybe that'll lead to something more. Who knows? But in any case, like, it's not just that somebody gave you money, it's that to them, like, that is the bedrock of what they perceive to be as a relationship. And so like each of those piecemeal donations feels like something meaningful to them personally, and it's just part of your large income tally. And I think that's another thing that makes people feel so like out of sorts when they see the total amount that a streamer made, because they're like, oh, the thing that I did didn't really matter. It was a drop in a bucket, and now I can see the bucket and I don't like it. But I mean, that's also just like the way that Twitch is built, right? Like that's the whole point. That's what all these systems are about, is incentivizing giving money. And that's the way they do it, through this perception that you are friends with someone, or if not friends, then at least like their brief moments where they acknowledge you and perhaps they remember your name and these sorts of things. But yeah, to pivot sort of away from that for a little bit, I did want to dig a little bit more into, again, the kind of demographics of who makes money on Twitch and who doesn't, because I do think that once again there's continuity between this phenomenon and like what already came before in hate raids, right? That we had all this conversation around the different ways that Twitch either fails to protect or fails to promote marginalized streamers during hate raids. And now again, you get this like very stark kind of list of people where it's like you cannot deny that there is a major income disparity here. And so like all these things certainly make people more aware, but like how can thing like how do you get things to a point where they actually change? I think people are increasingly aware that there's a massive income disparity between like wealthy white dude streamers and then a lot of other more marginalized streamers. And there are tons of examples now that you can point to of that. But what kind of comes after? What can a platform like Twitch do? And then what can streamers and viewers do to sort of improve this state of things when it's so clearly messed up?
They can start by not putting the same people on the front page and recommended for anybody who stops on the site for the first time. You know, that's when you show up to Twitch for the very first time, not logged in, you're looking at it, you're going, huh, who am I going to watch? Tyler, I'm going to watch Train, I'm going to watch White Guy 3, White Guy 4, White Guy 5.
Hey, don't you dare say anything bad about White Guy 5. I love that guy.
Yeah. I think that's Hassan. I think he's number
That is
5, right?
probably
That's
White
the
Guy
joke
5, yeah.
of what everybody was talking about their income being an actual number, like it's Squid Game.
Nah.
Yeah, I think that's the place where it starts, is that you, rather than it being a platform that continues to, despite the fact that there's other things that they've sort things, like the categories aren't necessarily sorted high to low anymore, perhaps it's saying, hey, look, these guys are successful. We don't need to put them on the top anymore. You know, that perhaps we don't need to have a high to low viewership at all. Perhaps we can recognize when streams are growing. If a stream goes from 10 viewers to 15 viewers, that's a 50% increase in your audience. Perhaps that's an opportunity for us to put them higher in a list. And again, that's algorithmic stuff that I don't necessarily know how easy or hard that is. I'm sure it's very difficult to come up with a proper algorithm. But, you know, just when you come to a stream when you come to Twitch for the first time, the experience shouldn't just be a bunch of me, because that's not how society is. That's not how when I walk down the street and I don't just see white guy, white guy, white guy, white guy. All right, I'm in white guy land. Fantastic. Like that's just it's weird to me that that continues to be the experience of watching Twitch. At least if you're new. You know, once you're into the system, then you can kind of cater your experience a little bit better and go, hey, I'm going to take a look at this creator. I'm going to look at this creator. But even still, as you're logged in, hey, you're still going. I mean, if I look at my front page right now, let me just take a quick look here. And I watch a very diverse group of creators. But let's see who's my recommended. Hassan Abi, Siam, who's a lovely woman. Podgy, who's a lovely woman. Claire, who's a lovely woman. Christy Schuyler, Frank the Pegasus. So I have an interesting mix here, but still a lot of white people. There could easily be some additional people on this recommended list that would get me out of, purely white content.
Right. Yeah, I'm in a similar boat.
It's this is the weird, and maybe I'm talking too much now, but the funny thing is that the content, depending on the color of your skin, often isn't that much different. It's still great content. It's still very enjoyable. So watching, so to me, it's always strange that it just seems to be the same things that kind of rise to the top. And again, I don't know how that functions. I don't know how the systems work that make that happen. But yeah.
Right.
The interesting thing is, like, the discoverability, like you said, Zach, but also give people that are not, generic white guy number 1 through 80 a front page slot that isn't tied to Black History Month, the shortest month of the year, Women's History Month, Pride Month. We're here and we make dope content year round. I'm going to call out Pleasantly Twisted in the chat. She just had a great thread about this. And people are like, well, it shouldn't matter. We shouldn't give people views based on skin color. And it's like, I didn't say give me a view based on my skin color. I do good content. I'm the same person, whether you tune in from Motherlands and we are on front page, or if you show up and I'm headshotting people in Far Cry 6 or driving off a cliff in some other game because I'm a terrible video game driver, we all do dope things. Mm-hmm. But the idea is, well, if you didn't get those front page slots, nobody would know who you are. Whenever we talk about us not getting a chance, us being marginalized creators, specifically people of color, out queer folks, it's always, well, it's a diversity thing and it's a whole thing about, well, you just want a free ride. It's like, but I didn't fail up into my current position like most of generic white guy 1 through 80 did. I've had to work 4 times as hard to get a half the notice. And if I say I make dope content, give me a shot, put me on front page, give me a chance to prove myself, I've got to work 3 to 4 times as hard, and I still may get passed over. The idea that we're all saying, give us free slots and give us free whatever based on our skin color is the other thing that needs to die, and I'm going to be that person that brings it up. Can we please end the conversation about titty streamers stealing viewers? If you come to Twitch for titties, you have your priorities backward. That's your problem. Or hot tub streamers or whatever the meta is. These people are stealing our views. And then I go look at the guys that say that these people are stealing their views. They're the most boring people I've ever seen. They have the 1,000-yard stare into the camera, if they got a camera, while they play COD and talk once every 45 minutes. But yet, they somehow think they deserve all these views and all this money. So get people opportunities based on their content and stop acting like only the white dude of the month of the same flavor, just one's a brunette, one's a redhead, no offense, John, is who people come for, because we also have to get past the idea that gamers are a certain stereotype. Been gaming since I could hold a controller, since I could put a quarter in a slot in an arcade, but yet no one looks at me and thinks gamer, but they look at everyone else on this panel and think, oh yeah, they're totally gamer bros.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and also, let's see. Urban Bohemian brought up a good point about that kind of status quo too. He said, even when it isn't a cultural history month, put someone who isn't a white man on the front page, and chat is flooded with law-wise as crap on the front page. Mm-hmm. And I think that expectation is what creates that, right? Because if it's just a white guy playing a video game in a really boring way, no one's going to say that, because that's what they are used to seeing anyway. So they'll just be like, oh, more of the same. But if there's a person of color, and that's not the usual status quo, there aren't generally many, then they'll be like, oh, why is this person here? If I'm not enjoying this content, it must be because of this person and how they look. And it's like, no, the only way to improve any of this is to more prominently, more frequently place people of color, because then people just say, oh, that's part of the norm. Like if it's always this outstanding moment, always this thing that is different from the norm, then people will keep thinking of it that way. That's just how that works. But yeah, I would say I think, given that we have already gone almost an hour and a half, to kind of wrap things up on a slightly different subject, more of a like future facing one. At this point, given the state of things, and I think this is one that maybe Zach can speak to some. Zach, what sense do you get in terms of just kind of the vibe within Twitch right now, and like how things are going? Like, I mean, I have to imagine that it's all hands on deck, pretty generally, but like, do you get the sense that they had in any way planned for something like this ever happening? And
Oh
like,
no, no.
no, not even a little bit. That's kind of wild to me because so many major companies at this point, at various points, have been hacked or have otherwise had pretty like severe, security flaws exploited. And so like it's just strange to me that companies aren't like, they don't have playbooks, right? Like if thing happens, we do
Well,
this.
yeah, no, they definitely do have playbooks, and they do have like situations where they're like, limiting coding stuff, and it is kind of this is definitely a different situation than the people who I talk to are used to. The only other time that there was this kind of level of control was the Doctor Disrespect suspend or permanent ban. Um, People are certainly less open to chatting and being a little bit more tight knit with information than usual, and I think that's by design in order to go, hey, this is a bad situation. We need to figure out exactly how to do this and how to address this properly, because there's also obviously a legal aspect to it too. But yeah, there's definitely uh, it's not the same level of we never expected this, but just kind of a we can't catch a break. That's the sentiment that I've been getting from people. Is it just seems like one bad thing after the other, and they can't catch a break. They can't get an opportunity to catch their breath, put out some good stuff, get some positive community. I guess they kind of ruined that with the test of paid boosts last week, but or talking about that. But yeah, there just seems to be I think going into Q4 of the year too, maybe they thought that, hey, maybe we've got some of the worst of it, the worst PR that we've had out of the way, and maybe we can kind of focus on some stuff and get some ad stuff going and get some community stuff going. And it's just getting this to drop in their lap, and this is, again, from conversations that I've had, this is going to be something that is going to be an ongoing thing, because we don't know for sure if this is the last leak. And then all of the leaks that occurred with the tooling, with the information, what does that mean for what comes next? Are all of these little script kiddies and ethical hackers for some of them, and then obviously red hat, black hat, whatever hats they're wearing, going around and trying to poke and prod at code and seeing what still works, what doesn't, what can they access, what could be sold for. Yeah, there you go.
Oh no, we brought one of them on our stream. Oh God, he's been hacking this entire time.
Yeah, he was right here. It was an inside job. But yeah, so I think it's kind of going to be this ongoing thought of, or ongoing battle for them of trying to figure out, okay, what do we do? How do we plug holes as they become apparent, or what holes now exist that were previously patched that are now opened again, and how do we keep this ship from sinking?
Yeah, I mean, John, you probably follow the community of people who would maybe be inclined to sift through this more than others. Do you get the sense that there are a lot of people who are like salivating, like, oh yeah, now it's time to, take advantage of maybe some exploits that we were not previously aware of?
No, truthfully, and like in full honesty, I don't think there are people that are jumping at the bit like, oh, we're gonna go break stuff.
Mhm.
I think it's sort of a sad joke. I think it's a little bit of a meme. People are saying, hey, at least on the bright side, no one wants to sift through all this Golang or some stupid thing. Uh, it's I don't know. If you were kind of to ask my closing thoughts, if I were to try and make it some way to wrap it up, I think in the security scene, whenever there's something that makes such a big splash, whether it's headlines or news and all this, we always tend to say, because it's such a boilerplate thing to say now, we always say, oh, this is yet another wake-up call for the industry to make a change, and this is a day of reckoning. This is when we know that we gotta fix something. And then nothing ever happens. That's become such a trite and overused statement, because then the industry and the security world doesn't get any better at all. I think what absolutely will change, and what absolutely will start to see this as a day and a wake up call, a good slap in the face and kick in the pants, is the victim itself, right? Is that's going to be Twitch. So I don't know what shape it will take. I don't know what it will look like. But I guess I am also hopeful something new is going to come from this, no matter what it might be. It's different than what we're going to have had before.
And Tanya, do you have any closing thoughts or remarks?
I don't know how much can I cuss at the end. I really hope that this one makes people think about the parasocial relationships they enter into with streamers, but also think about the conversations we don't have or won't have about money and earnings, and if it can enable people to renegotiate contracts, or if Twitch thinks about, and Twitch being the entity, not any one person, about the revenue split, because they're making money hand over fist over content we are providing. But also, for the love of God, people, turn on two-factor authentication. You should have it on anyway, because I didn't have to do it until I became an affiliate 4 years ago. I could just make an account and nothing stopped me. So please do that. And, think about who you're watching, or rather who you're not watching. There are plenty of people in the chat. There are people that I host. There are stream teams out there where you could give them your views, and watching all of us is free. Instead of focusing on, oh my God, people with 40,000 viewers are making all this money, think about the person with 20 views who is trying to grow and actually still loves the platform and wants to stay here. Because right now, where else are we going to go? YouTube? Because I mentioned it in chat, you need 4,000 uniquely watched hours and 1,000 subscribers on YouTube to start to monetize. If you need those metrics and you aren't putting out constant content or whatever you're doing, it's much harder to get to a monetization level on YouTube than it is on Twitch. So don't talk about how you love creators and want them to grow and then be mad that they make money. And also, come watch all of us on the YouTubes and the Twitch, or do something other than yell about big white streamers that are making money hand over fist. Spread that money around. If you've got it, of course.
Yeah, I guess it's a classic practice what you preach kind of moment. But yeah, well, with all of that said, thank you so much for joining me, all of you, especially for taking up so much of your day doing this. It really means a lot, and it was a great discussion.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, totally.
Thanks
Pleasure
so much.
chatting with you guys.
Great meeting you all.
Yeah, it's good meeting all of you too. Yeah, with all that said, I will see all of you around. Leave, because y'all can go. That's all right. Now watch that go down. I know my mic is still hot. I'm trying to keep people here because they're going to recognize, or they're going to see the be right back screen and think it's time to leave. But no, there's one last bit of the show. And I would like to keep as many people around as possible for it. Okay. I'm assuming we're back. Cool. Great. Awesome. All right. So guests are now gone, which that's a real shame. It was wonderful having them. But yeah, so basically at the end of the show every week, what I usually do is I kind of do a quick roundup of the more significant news of the week, talk through it really fast, discuss it with chat. So that's what we're going to do now. So let's see other things that happened this week of significance, and I think this kind of ties into the pay thing. But one of Twitch's bigger stars, Nick Merckx, re-signed with the platform, which is a little bit outside of what had been happening more recently, in that Dr. Lupo and Tim the Tatman both left Twitch for YouTube, and I think a lot of people were expecting Nick Merckx to do it too. And then he didn't, and he instead signed with Twitch again for the next couple of years, such that he'll be streaming a bunch. And yeah, I mean, I think it's the sort of thing where, reading between the lines, this was definitely an instance where Twitch sort of saw the direction the winds were blowing, and they were like, well, we have to make it seem like they're not blowing that way. And basically, like, from Nick Merck's manager, I heard more or less that. So he was telling me once the Lupo and Tim the Tatman announcements were made, and how those announcements were made, it became a lot more collaborative in terms of how Twitch would look to and is looking to champion Nick as like a face of their platform. This is the important part. Whereas before, Twitch wasn't really trying to make it such that they were celebrating these new deals or creating this expectation that big streamers are going to get big checks and big paydays every time a deal comes up. And so now Twitch is being like, wait, hold on. We're actually, maybe we will do some deals soon because we don't want more people leaving. I reported basically right after Tim the Tatman and Dr. Lupo left the platform that Twitch was kind of easing off of exclusive deals and how much they were paying people. And so, yeah, I think that they want to change that perception within reason. I don't think they're necessarily changing that business model. They're just saying like, wait, everyone, hold on. Maybe we don't want to lose a lot of our big streamers. Also, I just looked over at the stream and noticed that there was some sort of camera issue, and that my picture has now become just a still image of myself, which is really funny. Oh, I'm back. Okay. So that went away now. Well, for a minute, it was like that. But yeah. So Nick Merckx, big streamer, staying on Twitch. We may or may not see more of that in the future. I don't know. I feel like there's a likelihood that Lyric is going to be up for renegotiation soon. We'll see where that ends up. But yeah, I think that there will probably be some more major Twitch departures before it's all said and done. Just this one didn't happen. So moving on from that. Oh yeah, this is, the best news of the week, obviously. Sora's in Smash Brothers now. That's wonderful. I mean, as far as a final character could go for Smash, I don't think you could do much better than this. I know a lot of people wanted like Master Chief and Goku or whatever. Actually, folks in chat, who did you want for the last character? Oh, and now I've realized, and I don't know if this has changed yet, but there's two of me, and that rules too. Okay. I mean, you could put like a picture of Sora there. Can we get Sora? That'd be cool. But anyway, yeah. So Sora is in Smash. Is it a live stream if there are no tech issues? Good question. And no, it's definitely not a stream if there are no tech issues. There must be tech issues before the stream, specifically like 1 or 2 minutes before you go live, such that you think, oh man, we're just gonna have to give up for today. And then also in the middle of the stream, and then especially toward the end when it's like just you. So then you have to like be really nervous and anxious about that. Like that's always how it goes. Technology is seeking to undermine me constantly. That's just my life. But anyway, back to the topic at hand. What did people want to see in Smash versus what we got? Like, are there any Goku in Smash or Waluigi in Smash or like whatever else stands in the audience? I'm curious to know. So I feel like a lot of people were happy about this, but then other people were like, but it's not, Master Chief or whoever. But I will say that in the absence of that, what we got technically to me counts as a Goku. So I mean, look at his hair. He's got Goku hair. So I think that, best of all worlds, really. But yeah, so Sora's going to be in Smash as the allegedly last character, which seems like a fairly fitting end. It's kind of wild that they managed to make this happen, given how notoriously difficult Disney is when it comes to licensing. Long shot, but Hackbolt said they wanted something from Golden Sun. That would have been neat. I mean, Golden Sun, like, if they put somebody from Golden Sun in Smash, I think that would lend credence to the idea of like Golden Sun coming back. I don't think they'd do that unless they were like, we're also bringing the series back. I mean, you never know, but to me, it seems unlikely that they would do that unless they were also promoting a new Golden Sun. Majima and Smash would be amazing. That would have been Majima, for those who don't know, is from Yakuza. Yeah, he's one of the best characters in that series, and he absolutely would have been a great Smash character. Let's see. Sora was amazing. Love to have seen Waluigi just for the full circle moment. Yeah, right. I can't believe it. Like I just figured that what they were going to do for their final like reveal video is have someone else show up, like it could have been Sora or whatever, and then Sora unzips his entire body and he's Waluigi. Like that would have been the thing to do, obviously. But Nintendo refuses to acknowledge Waluigi for some weird reason. So I guess here we are. Let's see. The fact that Nintendo Go Sora is amazing. Loopholes to get this character is something else. He was a number in the voting that took place. Yeah. No, I mean, they had to have like gone through some major hoops to get him because again, like Disney is basically impossible to like do licensing deals with. And I know Sora is like a Square Enix character technically, but I mean, look at the little chain on his sword. That's Mickey Mouse. So yeah, it's wild that they managed to make that deal happen. I would be very curious to know how. And yeah, you can wish for a Golden Sun series return. Somehow I don't see it happening, but oh well. Let's see. Beyond that, probably the biggest other thing that happened this week, aside from Twitch getting hacked and having a huge leak issue, is Facebook went down entirely. It's wild to me that these two things happened in the same week because, like, I guess when it rains, it pours, right? But I mean, that's two major platforms suffering tremendous issues, like some of the biggest ones in their entire histories in the same week. I guess just coincidentally, I don't think it was the same like person or group of people doing it. But yeah, it had a relatively minor impact on video games overall. I mean, it obviously impacted Oculus, which is Facebook's VR system. And like any games on Facebook didn't function that day. What I'd be interested to know, and what Facebook will not divulge for whatever reason, probably because it would make them look bad, is how it impacted kind of their broader like Facebook gaming streaming metrics, because nobody could stream on Facebook that day since, you know, Facebook wasn't up. So I would be curious to know exactly how much that like hurt their viewership. And then also just like with that in mind, how much streamers are like, is this a stable platform? Should I stay here? Should I like go somewhere else, given that the viewership is not as good as it is on Twitch or YouTube? But yeah, I guess Facebook figured out what happened and got things back online, even though it was like a completely wacky series of events, because I guess so much of Facebook's security software is tied up in like every element of their operation. So what I heard is that, and I don't know if this is entirely true or not, but what I heard at the time is that Facebook employees couldn't even access the building where they were having issues because so much had like been knocked offline that even the system they used to access physical buildings wasn't working. So like completely bonkers stuff. And also a very good example of why maybe, like, I don't know, just spitballing here, we shouldn't have a singular massive platform be responsible for an enormous amount of communication across the world, especially in other countries where like people mainly use WhatsApp and things like that. And then also they probably should disentangle a lot of their own systems from the way that their company works, because if one thing gets knocked offline, then, you know, a bunch of other stuff does too, and then no one can do anything. And again, that just seems like a big vulnerability. Let's see, it also impacted Facebook linked login systems for stuff like Spotify, which makes me reconsider, yeah, tying everything to Google. No, I mean, like, this is such an interesting like wake up call moment, right? In that there are all of these different like major platforms now, or not all of them, there are only a handful. They basically say like, hey, for convenience's sake, just log in with your login for this platform. Log in with Google, log in with Facebook, log in with Amazon, whatever, and then you're set. But we're now seeing the downside of that, which is that if for whatever reason that platform stops working, then you can't access anything, or like you can't communicate with half your family, or what have you. Like that's just an absolute nightmare. And while these platforms are currently big enough that it seems like it's impossible for them to fail or suffer outages or whatever, that's just not true. Like nothing is invulnerable, nothing is perfect. And so then you have moments like this, and it's very, very bad. And so then you extrapolate that further, and it's like, well, what happens if one of these days, one of these platforms like goes out of business, or has a serious issue that just renders it unusable for a long time, then all your stuff that is tied up in it is suddenly out the window. And yeah, that is a miserable series of circumstances. So anyway, we need to rediversify the internet and stop relying on just 3 big platforms or 3 big companies, because it doesn't work. It's really bad. Speaking of big companies, talking about other big companies, I do, in hindsight, find this next bit bitterly ironic given what happened a couple days later. On the day of Facebook's outage, Twitch decided to tweet about it in a very snarky way. They said, Facebook down, obligatory meme here, like button below. Getting a little high and mighty as a platform that's still up might. And then, this response says it all. I'll take tweets that didn't age well for 800, because boy, oh boy, did that one not. I just found that really amusing given everything that occurred. Let's see, other fun things that have happened this week. So for one, I find this very strange. I think this news just broke today, or maybe very recently. Yesterday. Roblox, the incredibly popular game on YouTube and other platforms like that, or really a means by which other people can make games for people to play, has decided to, I guess, ban kissing and hand holding, which, I mean, like the headline says, leaves players baffled. I do not personally play Roblox, but I am baffled by it. I mean, I guess it's, again, because they want to keep the game kid friendly, and I could imagine how people might abuse things like hand holding and kissing in that kind of environment. I mean, there's obviously the eternal fear of predation in environments like this. If you have a game, or a platform for that matter, I know that Twitch has suffered from this too, that has a lot of young users and young audiences, it is very easy for malicious adults to, interact with kids in a way that could be construed as sexual, when those kids don't even necessarily know that because they are young. And so if you have things like this in games that are mainly played by younger people, then there's always that risk. And I imagine that a major company like Roblox, even if they are not doing this out of the kindness of their hearts, probably looks at that and sees a legal liability. And so they would, I presume, want to close any loopholes that might leave them at risk. That's my guess here. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. In the meantime, it's, as you would expect, a lot of content creators and people like that are looking at this and saying, ha ha ha, this is really funny. But it does make an amount of sense, albeit a depressing amount, given the way that people would potentially use features like this to prey on children. Welcome to the internet. It's a wonderful place. I'm so happy we made it. I'm really happy that we made 3 big websites, and then also, gave people the ability to be shitty to kids. Just great times all around. Let's see. Another thing that happened involving Roblox this week. I swear I don't usually talk about Roblox this much, but it's just been a big week for that game, I guess, is that everyone is suddenly into playing variants on Squid Game in their favorite games, mainly Roblox and GTA. But yeah, I mean, so this is YouTube Gaming's trending section, just to give you an example. The other day, it was I think 10 different videos in here were I played Squid Games in Game X, Minecraft being another one. I think that there are only 4 in here now, but I mean, everyone's into playing Squid Game suddenly, which is really interesting to me because the games themselves in Squid Game are relatively simple. And so it's interesting that people still find them fun to imitate on stream and in videos. And I mean, I think it also just goes to show how far Squid Game has gone in the span of a week. It is truly wild to me. And I don't know, folks in chat are, okay, actually, I'm really curious about this. Show of hands, how many of you are watching or have watched Squid Game? I really want to know this just for my own kind of data collection, because it is this show that obviously has become a, nationwide phenomenon, maybe a global phenomenon, despite being not within the mold of things that normally takes off. And now what we're seeing is that not only has it transcended what you would normally expect from a viewership standpoint for a show that is, you know, I think fairly dark and like obviously, you know, has a language barrier for Americans, and is, you know, ultimately an incisive critique of capitalism. But yeah, so it's also transcending mediums. It's also it's become so big that now people want to recreate it in video games, which says a lot about the show itself. Because what it says is, especially given the games in question, Roblox, GTA, Minecraft, it's a lot of younger people who are into the show. And again, it's kind of this like very dark, you know, adult skewing show. So this fact is not surprising to me necessarily, but it's telling, right? I'm interested to see how that works out in the long run, just because like I think that a lot of people were taken by surprise by the popularity of this particular show in general. The other part of it that sort of stands out to me is that this reminds me of when Battle Royale as a genre took off, in that Battle Royale was also meant to be like, it wasn't supposed to be like, hey, these are fun games to play. It was very much like, we're trying to critique, you know, a system, the ways people behave, the fact that rich people can make a bunch of, you know, poor people go kill themselves or kill each other on an island. And like, this is a similar but more like upfront take on, I think, similar themes. And so it's interesting to once again see people kind of like strip out the thematic element of it and just be like, let's make some games, because you kind of lose the subtext there. And like, I don't know, I wonder sometimes if that's a good thing to have happen to pieces of art that are trying to convey a very particular message. I mean, it's cool that people can make these games so quickly and, you know, have them be enjoyed by like millions of people, but I think that it's also it does a disservice to the actual thing, in this case Squid Game, in question. So I don't know, just some thoughts. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Face card in chat just said Squid Game's popularity and memification has real capitalist realism vibes. Yeah, because I mean, like, you know, if we really want to get into the weeds of it, right? Like, that's one of the things capitalism does best, is someone will create a critique of it, or a popular piece of media that critiques it, or anything else, and capitalism just kind of consumes it or subsumes it. It says like, okay, well, you know, let's strip out all of the subtext and all of the nuance and just turn this into a popular thing that people consume, often, you know, in some way, shape, or form, for money. And so like that's, I mean, it's wild to think about, but that's how a system, you know, just sustains itself forever, right? Is that even when it can even take the things that are trying to undermine it and turn them into things that uphold it. And like, you know, at that point, that's kind of game over, right? And yeah, so I mean, this was all over YouTube. It was all over Twitch. This is just like a Ludwig clip that I was watching earlier. It's from the portion of the show that's like when they have to fight each other with the lights out, and it's just chaos. I think there's probably a but anyway, yeah. So it's just been everywhere. It's kind of the trendy game of the week on Twitch and YouTube. Let's see. In happier news, regarding capitalism, which, you know, at the end of the day, am I not just always, no matter what I'm reporting on capitalism, right? It's living in America. Anyway, in happier news regarding capitalism, Eidos Montreal, the studio behind, they're currently working on the Guardians of the Galaxy game. Before that, I think they were best known for the Deus Ex reboots, which I think have become a little bit more obscure than they were when they came out. But I mean, cyberpunk games, basically. They are switching over to a 4-day work week, which is something that I don't think anyone really saw coming. Because like already, you know, it's rare for anywhere to employ a 4-day work week. And I think that people were not expecting to see that out of any major video game studios for quite some time. And then just out of nowhere, kind of today, Eidos Montreal announced this. As they said, a better work-life balance for even more innovative games. And, you know, you will not hear me complaining about this. This is cool. This is a really neat thing for a company to do, especially given the bevy of research that suggests that a 4-day work week is just better for people. It's better in terms of how much they're able to recover between work weeks. It's better in terms of overall productivity because people are refreshed and because like they're more engaged with the work they are doing. They don't just sit around all day because like they're worn out and burnt out. And like it's better for, you know, people being happy and leading fulfilling lives, which should ultimately be the point of any of this. Like, who cares about productivity and work if you're not happy? So this is a cool thing. I get the impression that there's a broader trend in kind of like Montreal and places like that in this direction, um, especially in terms of like, so I think there's like an element of competition among studios and workplaces that are in those areas. I read somebody talking about this earlier. Let's see if I can find it. Somebody was saying like they really take the kind of like creating a better workplace thing seriously. Let's see where there are actual replies to this, because they kind of cut off. Here we go. Show more replies. There's some good analysis to this somewhere in this thread. Oh yeah, and like the other thing that's good about this is someone was asking like, well, are they going to work more on the days that they're in the studio? And they are not. It'll be yeah. Here we go. In the next few weeks, the Montreal and Sherbrooke studios will be officially closed on Fridays without changing the working conditions currently in place nor the salaries of employees, thus switching from the 40-hour work week to 32, which is great. That's awesome. That is phenomenal. And hopefully we see other video game studios take a page out of their book and go for the same thing. And then hopefully, and this is my kind of like grander, broader plan, we see the Washington Post decide to imitate a lot of video game studios. And then I also get Fridays off forever. But you know, we'll see how that goes. My fingers are not crossed, or rather, I'm keeping my fingers crossed because I don't think that this is going to happen any other way. So let's see. With all that said, usually I end up closing things out with like something funny I found, but I didn't have time to find anything funny this week because I was too busy putting together a big roundtable. So instead, I will just say I'll just end things on this heartwarming note that a game studio has done the right thing, and you know, it seems like it's going to make life better for a lot of workers, which is dope. So with all that said, thank you everybody for joining me and us this week. When I say us, I mean also all of the wonderful guests I had on today. Thank you again to all of those folks, to Zach, John, and Tanya, who were all amazing and who brought some very nice and cool viewers into chat. Thank you to all of you who stuck it out and hung out for this whole time and were so participatory during the discussion. This was a really, really great installment of our show. I think that it was probably our best yet. And so I just want to thank everyone, because obviously we could not have done this without everyone else involved, from the viewers to the guests to all of that. So with all that said, we're going to be back next week. We always are, 4 p.m. ET every week. Until then, this has been yet another episode of Washington Post Story Mode, aka WaPo Story Mode, and I will see you next time.